Good morning, everyone. My name is Vinny DeMarco. I'm the president of the Maryland Healthcare for All Coalition. We are here today to talk about making high-cost drugs more affordable for all Marylanders. This is a press conference today which is being live streamed, and there are reporters and others who are watching it at their offices or homes, but we thank those of you who are here with us today. We are thrilled that Maryland in 2019 took the first step in making high-cost drugs more affordable for all Marylanders by enacting the first in the nation Prescription Drug Affordability Board. Since then, other states have followed our lead, and now we need to do the next step to make that board do its job better. That board is about to make high-cost drugs more affordable for state and local governments, but the original bill did not give it the authority to make high-cost drugs more affordable for all Marylanders. And we're thrilled that today we're announcing the introduction of that bill, Senate Bill 388 and House Bill 340. Senate Bill 388 and House Bill 340. And this legislation will authorize the Prescription Drug Affordability Board to make high-cost drugs more affordable for all Marylanders. As our banner there says, drugs don't work if people can't afford them. And that's why we're here today, and we're thrilled to be here with these key legislators who are putting the bill in. Let's start with someone who was one of our key leaders in 2019, the lead sponsor in the House, Delegate Bonnie Cullison, who's Vice Chair of the House Health and Government Operations Committee. And ladies and gentlemen, she did such a great job defending this bill on the floor of the House in 2019. I'm sure she'll help get it enacted, this bill, in 2024. Delegate Cullison.
Thank you very much, Vinny, and I want to thank the Coalition for their work on this in this very important issue. We've been working on drug affordability for years now, and because prescription drugs have become so affordable. As Vinny mentioned, the first in the nation Prescription Drug Affordability Board began here in Maryland in 2019 because we needed to understand the drug pricing process, and we needed someone to help us figure out what was driving those costs and how we could contain them. No one is saying that drug manufacturers should not be making a profit on their services. However, there are limited numbers of choices that people can take when they are using prescription drugs. And sometimes we have to measure that demand and need over what the public needs and what people need in order to be well and stay healthy. Last year alone, manufacturers raised prices on 500 drugs in 2023, and sometimes those price increases were above the rate of inflation. This is not sensitive to the needs of the people, and we have to be cognizant of that. We have done independent polling that shows 60% of Marylanders are concerned about the cost of their prescription drugs. We can help. We can help now by expanding the authority of the Prescription Drug Affordability Board so that they will set what are called upper payment limits. That's what the state will pay for its drugs, and if these upper payment limits are authority is expanded, it will be expanded to the commercial market as well. So that is what this board is tasked to do. First of all, let's look at what it does for state and local government employees, and then give it the authority, once we see how it works, to expand it to the other areas of insurance coverage. And it's the right thing to do at this time, but it's not going to be easy. I mean, it was not easy to pass the board in 2019. This is not going to be easy, but I have some tremendous champions and partners working with me in the legislature. I am so grateful to be standing here with fellow sponsors, Senator Don Guile and Senator Brian Feldman, Delegate Jennifer White-Holland, as well as the support of Delegate Janelle Wilkins and the Legislative Black Caucus. There is also, by virtue of just what the information that Healthcare for All Coalition is being put out, there's robust community support. And that's why I'm here with Vinny and the coalition today and the 450 organizations that make up that coalition to support this initiative. Together, we can work to make sure that all Marylanders can afford the medicines they need because drugs don't work if people can't afford them. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Cullison. Thank you. With your help, we're going to pass this bill through the House for sure. And we're thrilled that our lead sponsor in the Senate is one of the rising stars of the state Senate who did a terrific job in her first year. And now we're thrilled that she's going to be our lead sponsor. She's a public health advocate and a leader on Finance Committee, Senator Dawn Guile.
Thank you, Vinny, and thank you to the coalition as well and everyone else who's here. Thank you to our co-sponsors. Also wanted to quickly point out one of our other co-sponsors is the Senate Finance Committee Chair, my fellow Anne Arundel County Senator, Senator Pam Vital, who is here with us today. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. One of the most common concerns I hear from my constituents is their struggle with the skyrocketing cost of prescription drugs. Recent polling has shown that a staggering 45% of Marylanders report having difficulty affording the medications that they need. While this number alone make this an issue worthy of attention, what is not shown in polling is the hidden prescription drug tax that we are all subject to. We are all hurt by the high cost of prescription drugs, whether at the pharmacy counter, through insurance premiums, or taxpayer dollars. Notably, the cost of prescription drugs is a major driver of increases in our health insurance premiums. CareFirst has reported that 1/3 of premium dollars go towards prescription drug expenditures, meaning that even when out-of-pocket costs are relatively manageable for patients, the high cost of prescription drugs can be burdensome to our healthcare system. The prescription drug supply chain is crowded and complicated. Thankfully, by allowing our Prescription Drug Affordability Board to establish statewide upper payment limits, Maryland can ensure we have a solution that includes and considers all members of the supply chain while ensuring that cost savings reach consumers. What it is, an independent body with the authority to evaluate high-cost prescription drugs and set up reasonable rates for Marylanders to pay. And what it does, if given full UPL authority, the board will review prescription drugs with costs that impact Marylanders, including high-cost brand name medications. The board will consider a broad range of economic factors when setting appropriate payment rates for reviewed drugs, allowing pharmaceutical manufacturers the opportunity to justify prescription drug costs. Once a fair payment rate is determined, the board sets an upper payment limit that applies to the entire supply chain. So this is an important piece of legislation to ensure that Marylanders have access to the important medications that they need. This is a life or death situation. I'm proud to partner with Maryland Healthcare for All and the advocates in order to see this bill across the finish line. So thank you everyone for being here today.
Thank you, Senator Guile. We really look forward to working with you to get this bill past the Senate. And thank you, Chair Pam Vital, for joining this. Thank you very, very much. She's been a longtime advocate for good health care, as has our next speaker, who's another lead sponsor, Senator Brian Feldman, who's chair of the Environment, Education, and Energy. Did I get that right? Almost. The EEE committee. And when he was on Finance Committee, Senator Feldman led the way to enact this bill in 2019, and he'll tell you it was not easy. But he fought very hard and did a brilliant job in making sure that this bill got passed and is working. And he's helping us also to get the similar bills passed in other states like Virginia. So I'm thrilled to introduce Senator Brian Feldman. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Vinny. Before I talk about this bill, I think there's some context that's important. Actually, there's been a lot written over the last few years about how Maryland literally is leading the nation among states when it comes to health care. I mean, we've cut our uninsured rate from 13% down to 6%. And Vinny DeMarco's been in the middle of all these efforts, and so I got to give him a quick shout out. When you think about the last few years, whether it was our easy enrollment, first in the nation easy enrollment program, where you check a box on your state tax return saying you don't have health insurance, and then we see if you're eligible for Medicaid, eligible for subsidies. That was this group largely responsible for that. In fact, Senator Chris Van Hollen introduced a federal bill to do just the same. We also, as part of the kind of innovation in Maryland, the young adult subsidy program that we now have a pilot program, subsidies for young adults 18 to 34 who think they're going to live forever and they don't think they need health insurance. That is working beautifully. And so we, quite frankly, have been out in front of the nation in healthcare, which brings us to today. Delegate Collison and I were the chairs of the conference committee back in 2019, and as was alluded to, that landmark legislation creating the very first in the nation prescription drug affordability board. It was a tough one, huge problem, tough one to pass. It was a heavy lift, but now we have, like these other proposals, 7 states have copycatted us, and now I've been in front. We've just talked 7, maybe 8. We're working in Virginia and Richmond right now to make that happen. And quite frankly, we are uniquely positioned amongst all states to be out front. The problem is we have some states, some of the copycat states, Colorado, Minnesota, and some others who've essentially leapfrogged us. They created their prescription drug affordabilities after us, and yet they've given their boards more authority than we currently have. And so we're uniquely positioned. We want to reclaim the leadership position here. And so I think this is critically important legislation. I would also just add, Congress doesn't do much, but they actually did step up in the Inflation Reduction Act and put in place a system or the possibility that our Medicare population, and in Maryland that's 1 million Marylanders, will get some relief from prescription drugs, but we have the rest of our population here in the state also deserve relief. So I look forward to working with my House counterparts, again, with Delegate Collison. But from a Senate perspective, I have to give a shout out to Senator Guile. We couldn't have recruited a better lead sponsor from the Committee of Jurisdiction, chaired by Senator Bottle. Senator Guile has quickly established herself in that committee and the Senate as a whole as somebody who is tough. And in this case, you got to stand up to the pharma lobbyists. I don't know if any of her here. She definitely can do that. Smart, very effective, and that's a brand she's achieved after just 1 session in the state Senate. So it's all good. We're moving forward, and thank you for letting me be part of this. Okay.
Thank you, Senator. And I'm glad Chairman Feldman mentioned the Inflation Reduction Act. Thank you, President Joe Biden, the first president ever to take on and defeat Big Pharma at the federal level. Now we need to build on that here in Maryland for people who aren't on Medicare. This morning, I'm proud to say the Maryland Legislative Black Caucus decided to make this proposal one of their top priorities. That's big news, and it couldn't happen without our other lead sponsor, Delegate Jen White Holland from Baltimore County, who is already, like Senator Dawn Guile, is new, but she is tough, and she is strong and smart, and is already a power in the Maryland General Assembly. We're thrilled she's one of our leaders, and turn it over to Delegate White Holland.
Thank you, Vinny, and good morning, everyone. It truly is a pleasure to be here. Again, I'm Delegate Jennifer White Holland, representing District 10 in Baltimore County, and truly it is an honor to stand before you and be in partnership with the Healthcare for All Coalition and advocates and my fellow champions. And certainly, as a member of the Health and Government Operations Committee, and certainly as a public health professional, I have witnessed the devastating impact that unaffordable prescription drugs have on both our public health and the economic well-being of our communities. Over the past few years, we've seen too many of our health departments struggle to stock naloxone due to budget constraints, leaving our first responders without a critical tool needed to combat the opioid epidemic. We've also seen countless Marylanders being forced to skip a dose or to even ration their medication or leave a prescription at the pharmacy counter due to cost. And so too many of our families and neighbors have been faced in making these impossible decisions, forced to choose between medication they need along with economic stability. And so while we are all hurt by the high cost of prescription drugs, Black Marylanders are faced with additional burdens due to persistent racial health inequities, which is why, again, the Legislative Black Caucus of Maryland, our largest Black legislative caucus in the country, is pleased to stand in support of this legislation and has included this as part of our top priorities for our bills this year. While the pharmaceutical industry claims that the high cost of medications is due to research and development, a claim that you will see refuted by a report the following speaker will discuss, many diseases that disproportionately impact and affect Black communities are under-researched and adequate treatment lags behind. Sickle cell disease, as an example, has limited treatment options on the market, and those that are available are incredibly costly. So there is no free market to address these costs, and that's why we need a prescription drug affordability board with the authority to determine fair, affordable rates for all Marylanders. This will help to alleviate some of the financial burdens placed on our most disenfranchised residents and to ultimately improve health equity. I am proud to serve as a lead co-sponsor and join my fellow champions with this legislation. It is a critical way for us and our state to ensure that we are putting patients over pharmaceutical profit, because again, drugs don't work if people can't afford them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Delegate White Holland. You also did a great job today at the Black Caucus. Thank you very, very much. This has been possible because of great leaders in the legislature and our coalition that Chairman Feldman referred to. Over 450 faith, community, labor, business, and healthcare groups, including 1199E, Ricardo Jones, thank you for all support 1199E has given. NAACP, we have Jonathan McKinney over there. NAACP has been critical. Also critical, if not most critical, has been AARP. And we really thank AARP for all you've done. Larry Zarzecki from AARP also has a story which he can discuss with you afterwards on how high-cost drugs are making his life harder. And my colleague Lila Martin over here has copies of other stories for you if you want to hear how high-cost drugs have hurt people. But I want to close with this great new report from Public Citizen. As you see over here in this graphic, profits over patients is what this is about. The number one argument that the drug corporations make against our proposal is that if we do this, they won't be able to afford to do the research and make the drugs more affordable that people need to stay alive. The fact is, as you'll hear in a minute in more detail, they spent in 2022 in 10 group of drug corporations over $19 billion more on profits and advertising than on research. They have the money right now to do all the research they need. They're not spending it on that. They're spending more of it on profits and advertising. So we need to do what we can to make high-cost drugs more affordable. And I want to turn the mic over right now to Peter Maybar-Duke, who with his colleague Jishan, where's Jishan? Thank you, Jishan. His colleague who did a lot of the work on this, most of the work. They put together this report. I have hard copies of it here if you want. We can also email it to you. But let's hear from Peter about this report. This is very, very important for Maryland and for the whole country. Peter?
Thank you. Thanks so much, Vinny. I'm the Access to Medicines Director at Public Citizen, a national consumer advocacy organization with the 50-year history representing the public interest before the courts, Congress, and the federal agencies. We have 500,000 members and supporters, and we are very pleased to be here with you today in support of Bills 388, 340, making medicine affordable for all Marylanders. Very proud to be associated with the first in the nation prescription drug affordability board effort here in Maryland and its necessary expansion today. We're so excited to see the progress that's being made. Now, as Vinny said, you've heard pharma's claims. You've heard the shrill shrieking in the hallways. You've seen the money spread around by the pharma lobbyists. If you act against our outrageously high prices, you're going to compromise your ability to get new drugs. You're going to compromise our ability to get R&D investments. Scare tactics. These are companies that are suing the Biden administration right now for the most modest efforts to begin cracking down on this drug price extortion. And I know they're giving you all headaches here in Annapolis as well. So we thought we'd investigate the claim. Does IRA pose a danger to R&D? Does a prescription drug affordability board pose a danger to research and development into new drugs? We reviewed SEC filings, the complete filings for 2022, the latest year for which complete data is available, and companies' own filings and reports. And as Vinny suggested, here is what we found. So we looked at the makers of the 10 drugs selected for Medicare price negotiation under the Inflation Reduction Act. And we also looked at the 10 drugs that are most expensive for Marylanders, looking at all your payers, what's costing Maryland the most, and then we looked at where these companies are putting their money. Manufacturers of the first 10 drugs selected for Medicare negotiations spent $10 billion more, that's billion with a B, on self-enriching activities, that's stock buybacks and dividends and executive compensation, than they spent on research and development. For manufacturers of the 10 costliest drugs in Maryland, for payers including Medicare, Medicaid, and certain commercial insurance plans, those corporations spent $9 billion more on stock buybacks, dividends, and exec compensation than they spent on research and development. Meanwhile, that executive compensation exceeded $500 million in just 2022 for those 10 companies. Most of that compensation is key to stock prices, which incentivizes short-term measures to inflate share prices, such as buybacks, rather than long-term investments in R&D. Now, these are supposed to be R&D corporations. This is the only reason for their existence, is supposedly to drive R&D in new drugs. But that's not where their money is going. Their money is going to self-enrichment, to feed a cycle of increasing share prices rather than in investing in new drugs. Now, the need to invest in R&D is deadly serious, and all of us do. Collectively, as taxpayers, we put more than $40 billion a year into federal R&D at the National Institutes of Health, which is where most new drugs are supported or incubated in one way or another through federal investments. We are already paying, and we pay again when drug monopolists, patent protected, charge us these outrageous prices. So the need to fund R&D is deadly serious, but these corporations are not serious about investing in it themselves. For the costliest drug in Maryland, the self-enrichment figures, buybacks, dividends, executive compensation, for AbbVie's Humira, right? You've heard about Humira, 11.6 billion compared to 6.5 billion in corporate R&D investments. So for the drug that is costing Marylanders the most, that company is spending almost twice as much enriching itself as it is spending on future drug development. So the companies are not actually that serious about R&D, and the idea that we need to be content with outrageous prices, that we can't discipline these companies at all in order to make medicine affordable, is not serious at all. Drugs don't work for people who can't afford them. Thank you so much for your work here today. We're with you in this fight. This is the official launch of this new report, which we're happy to provide copies of, and Jashawn, our crack researcher expert, will answer any questions you have about the particulars. We'll be with you as you take it to the companies. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Peter. And these numbers here, the 22 billion, are the self-enrichment that Peter talked about, plus advertising. When you add the self-enrichment and the advertising, they spend 22 billion more on these self-enrichment and advertising than on research. It makes no sense at all. And I also want to thank Protect Our Care. Is anybody from Protect Our Care here? Protect Our Care for joining in this. And I also want to give a shout out to Jim Gutman, who serves on the Stakeholder Council of the Prescription Drug Affordability Board. Thanks, Jim. Chairman Beidel, where's she had to go? Okay, I'm glad she was with us. We're thrilled she's one of the lead sponsors. Any questions from any reporters? Yes.
So the Prescription Drug Affordability Board has had some hurdles getting up and running. Why is it time to expand the board now when Marylanders have not yet seen the effects of PDAB's work within the board?
Well, first of all, I want to say the board is doing the best job it can. The hurdles it faced were caused by the former governor, who vetoed a funding bill and slow-walked it. Under the original legislation that Delegate Cullison and Senator Feldman got enacted in 2019, they were supposed to have completed work on state and local governments by 2023. And that didn't happen because of the former governor. However, Governor Moore got a bill passed with Senator Feldman, Delegate Cullison putting in to give them more of a boost to be able to get the job done. I believe they are right now about to make high-cost drugs more affordable for state and local governments. There's about to be an upper payment limit action plan for that. And the important point I'd like to make is that what they've done on cost reviews and figuring things out is something they can adapt to making high-cost drugs more affordable for everyone. So they've done a lot of the work. And I believe that with this legislation, they'll have the authority, and when they're ready, they can make high-cost drugs more affordable for everyone. So we had hoped to get this full authority in 2019, and now it's 2024. People can't wait any longer. And as Senator Feldman said, 3 states, Colorado, Minnesota, and Washington State, have prescription drug boards with this full authority. Doesn't mean they're going to do it right away, but with the authority, they can do it as soon as they can. Does anybody want to add?
If I could piggyback on
Yeah.
her question, so the compromise was made to initially limit the board, to the government plans, and I appreciate the need for the desire to expand it to the commercial market. But given that it has been slow, are you concerned that lawmakers might want to see more from the board before they choose to expand it? Could that be a hurdle to getting the bill passed this year?
Well, it's possible, but the bill has in it language that says that the board cannot implement an upper payment limit action plan without the approval of the Legislative Policy Committee. That was there so let me just, when the board announces its upper payment limit action plan, which we hope will be soon, it still has to be approved by the Legislative Policy Committee, and both of these wonderful people are on that. This bill that has been put in now by Senator Guile and Delegate Cullison has that in there for upper payment limits for everybody. So if the legislature is concerned that the upper payment limit action plan is going too far, they don't approve it. So there is another check. So I think it's time to give the board the authority right now to move forward and propose an upper payment limit action plan to the Legislative Policy Committee.
Thank you, Vinny, and it's a great question. I appreciate it. And what this bill's intended to do is to make that transition faster and more possible sooner. The legislative process, if we were going to wait, we could be 2 or 3 years down the line, and people would have been paying more and more for their drugs over that time. If everything is working as it should, and we should see that right away, as soon as the plan is approved and the implementation, we'll know. We'll have good feedback on how it's working and what the response is. We should be able to quickly transition to the commercial market if everything's working the way that we think it should, and there is that check, as Vinny said, to make sure that that's happening.
Any other questions? Well, I think we're done. Why don't we have our lead sponsors make final words? Any final words from anybody?
Let's get it done.
Good. I like that. Let's get it done. Now, don't anybody leave with